Let me tell y'all something. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. See, we live in a world where everybody want to talk. Social media got folks thinking they need to comment on everything, respond to everything, prove something to everybody. But the real power, that's in silence. Silence is one of the most underrated tools of power. Most people think that strength comes from always having something to say, always responding, always proving a point. But real power comes from knowing when to speak and when to stay quiet. When you control your words, you control the room. In a world where everybody wants to be heard, silence makes you stand out. People expect immediate reactions. They expect you to defend yourself, explain yourself, argue your case. But when you don't, it shifts the energy. It makes people pause. It makes them wonder what you're thinking, what your next move is. And that right there, that moment of uncertainty is where your power lies. Think about the most influential people in the world. They don't speak just to fill space. When they do, every word matters. That's because they've mastered the art of silence. They don't let emotions drive their responses. They don't let distractions pull them into unnecessary conversations. They understand that not everything deserves their attention. Silence is a choice. It's a form of discipline. When you learn to hold your tongue, you stop letting people control your emotions. Somebody says something reckless to you, and your first instinct is to react. That's human nature. But when you stay quiet, you take back control. You don't give them the satisfaction of getting under your skin. You show them that their words have no power over you. Silence also makes people listen when you finally do speak. If you're always talking, always arguing, always proving a point, your words lose value. But when you only speak when necessary, people start paying attention. They know that when you open your mouth, it's for a reason. It's also a tool for observation. When you're silent, you hear what others don't. You pick up on details. You read people better. You see things for what they really are. A lot of people miss opportunities because they're too busy talking instead of listening. The smartest person in the room isn't always the loudest. It's usually the one who says the least, but notices the most. Mastering silence is about learning to be comfortable with it. Most people hate silence because they feel like they need to fill it. They rush to speak because they're afraid of what happens if they don't. But when you embrace silence, you realize it's not emptiness, it's power. Mystery is one of the greatest advantages you can have in life. The moment people can predict your every move, they gain the ability to control you. When they know exactly how you think, how you react, and what you're planning, they can get ahead of you, block your path, or manipulate you into doing what benefits them. But when you learn to move in silence, you take that power away. People are naturally curious. They want to know what's going on in your life, what you're working on, what your next step is. The more you feed them information, the more control you give away. But when you keep things to yourself, you create uncertainty. People start guessing, wondering, trying to figure you out. That's where the power shifts. When they don't know what you're up to, they can't prepare for it. They can't interfere, they can't block your blessings, and they can't use your plans against you. Look at the most successful people in any industry. They don't announce their next move. They don't tell everybody what they're about to do. They work in silence, and then one day they show up with results. By the time people realize what's happening, it's already done. That's because they understand the power of mystery. They know that keeping their goals and strategies private protects them from unnecessary opinions, negativity, and distractions. Not everyone around you wants to see you win. Some people only ask about your plans so they can secretly hope for your failure. Others want to copy your ideas and run ahead of you. And then there are those who will plant seeds of doubt in your mind just because they don't have the courage to chase their own dreams. When you keep your moves to yourself, you protect your vision from all of that. Mystery also makes people respect you more. When you don't put everything on display, you create a sense of importance around yourself. People start seeing you as someone who operates on a different level. They realize that you don't need validation, you don't need approval, and you're not moved by outside noise. That kind of presence changes the way people treat you. It makes them think twice before underestimating you because they never know what you might do next. Operating with mystery isn't about being secretive for no reason. It's about being strategic. It's about understanding that not everything needs to be shared, not every move needs to be announced, and not everyone needs access to your plans. Your energy is one of the most valuable things you have. Every day you wake up with a certain amount of it, and how you choose to use it determines the direction of your life. Some people waste their energy on things that don't serve them, arguing with people who don't matter, proving themselves to those who will never be satisfied, and reacting to every little thing that comes their way. But the truth is, not everything deserves your response, and not everyone deserves your energy. When you spend your time engaging in pointless battles, you drain yourself mentally, emotionally, and even physically. Every time you respond to negativity, you give it power. Every time you argue with someone who doesn't want to understand you, you lose focus. Every time you try to explain yourself to people who have already made up their minds, you waste time that could have been spent building your future. The people who are truly successful in life understand that their energy is a resource, and they treat it like one. They don't give it away freely to things that don't bring them closer to their goals. There will always be distractions. There will always be people who try to test you, push your buttons, and pull you into unnecessary drama. The key is learning to recognize what's worth your time and what isn't. Some battles are meant to be fought, but most are just traps designed to pull you away from what you should be focused on. The moment you learn to ignore what doesn't matter, you take control of your energy. Silence is one of the best ways to protect your energy. When you don't respond, you keep your power. When you don't engage in negativity, you stay in control. People can't argue with someone who refuses to participate. They can't drain you if you don't give them access to your mind. When you hold on to your energy, you have more of it to put into the things that actually matter. Your growth, your peace, your success. Many people don't realize how much energy they give away until they start choosing where to place it. They think they have to respond to everything, defend themselves at every turn, or prove their worth to others. But once you understand the value of your energy, you start to see things differently. You start asking yourself, is this worth my time? Does this serve my future? Will this matter a year from now? If the answer is no, then it doesn't deserve your attention. Actions will always speak louder than words. People can talk all day about what they're going to do, who they're going to become, and what they plan to accomplish, but until they put in the work, it's just noise. The real power lies in execution. Those who understand this don't waste time announcing their every move. They let their results do the talking. One of the biggest mistakes people make is thinking they need to prove themselves through words. They feel the need to explain their dreams, justify their choices, and seek approval from others before they even take the first step. But the truth is, success isn't built on explanations. It's built on discipline, consistency, and action. Talking about your goals might make you feel good in the moment, but it doesn't bring you any closer to them. What moves you forward is the work you put in when nobody's watching. People respect results, not promises. You don't have to convince anyone of your potential when you show them what you're capable of. The moment you start producing results, the same people who doubted you will have no choice but to acknowledge your growth. That's why the most successful individuals are often the quietest about their plans. They don't need validation. They don't need applause before they've even accomplished anything. They just put their heads down, do the work, and let success speak for itself. Staying silent about your moves also protects you from unnecessary distractions. When you tell everyone what you're working on, you invite opinions. Some good, some bad. Some people will encourage you, but others will plant seeds of doubt. They'll question whether you're capable, whether it's realistic, whether you should take a different route. Before you know it, their doubts start becoming your doubts, and suddenly you're second-guessing yourself. But when you keep your focus on execution instead of explanation, you block out the noise and stay committed to your path. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't talent or luck, it's action. Every day you have a choice. Talk about what you're going to do or actually do it. The people who win in life are the ones who take steps forward, no matter how small, every single day. They don't waste energy trying to convince others of their worth. They build their value through action, through persistence, through results. That's why their success speaks for itself. Clarity is one of the most powerful things a person can have, but most people never achieve it because they never slow down long enough to listen. The world is loud, it's full of opinions, distractions, and nonstop noise that pulls you in different directions. If you don't learn to embrace silence, you'll always struggle to hear your own thoughts, your own instincts, and the guidance that's already inside you. Most people are uncomfortable with silence. The moment things get quiet, they reach for their phone, turn on the TV, or fill the space with small talk. But silence isn't empty. It's full of answers. When you take a step back from all the noise, you start to see things clearly. You start to recognize what really matters, what's worth your energy, and what's just background distraction pulling you off course. Clarity doesn't come from talking more, it comes from listening more, listening to yourself, to your intuition, to the lessons life is trying to teach you. It comes from sitting with your thoughts long enough to understand them. A lot of people move through life on autopilot, reacting instead of thinking, speaking instead of listening. They jump from one thing to the next without ever stopping to ask themselves if they're even headed in the right direction. Silence forces you to reflect. It forces you to check in with yourself and ask, is this really what I want? Is this really the best use of my time and energy? Some of the most successful and wise people in the world make time for silence every single day. They know that in order to make good decisions, they have to clear out the noise. They don't let the outside world dictate their path. They don't let other people's opinions drown out their inner voice. They understand that clarity isn't something you find by accident, it's something you create by being intentional with your focus. When you start embracing silence, you begin to hear things differently. You start to notice patterns in your thoughts. You start to recognize what drains you and what energizes you, and you become more aware of what truly aligns with your purpose. That's why silence isn't just about staying quiet, it's about gaining control over your mind. When you master silence, you gain access to a level of wisdom and insight that most people never experience. Words are powerful, but their power depends on how they are used. When you speak all the time, when you respond to everything, when you constantly explain yourself, your words begin to lose their weight. But when you learn to stay silent until it truly matters, people start to listen. They start to pay attention because they know that when you speak, it's for a reason. There's a difference between talking just to talk and speaking with purpose. A lot of people feel the need to fill every moment with words, to constantly be part of the conversation, to have a response to everything. But the truth is, The more you talk, the less impact your words have. The most influential people aren't the ones who speak the loudest or the most often. They're the ones who speak with meaning. They choose their words carefully.